This monster review looks at the mutants in Miscreated. The short disclaimer at the end explains the criteria and conditions under which they are reviewed. Miscreated is currently in a state of development, although the game has been out for a long time. It may mean that the mutants change in the future at some point. At that time, I will conduct another monster review. There are three types of mutant in Miscreated, and people have a variety of names for them. I call them the Spike Mutant, the Naked Mutant, and the Crazy Mutant. So there are three different appearances. Each one has fairly good textures. They look pretty scary, but there's something about the way that the joints work, and particularly the Spike Mutant. The arm looks very unusual, as if this sort of mutation or change to the body would be very hard to achieve in reality. There are no variations to their clothing. I'd say that some of the textures need to be refined. They're slightly awkward in the structure of the skulls and faces, and for these reasons I give them a 5 out of 10 for appearance. Movement. The mutants in Miscreated have a very peculiar way of moving. It's as if their feet are flapping at the ground rather than actually gripping the surface. They all run the same, and at times they get caught on rocks or disappear completely. The nav mesh needs work, but none of this seems to have been corrected for over a year now. So whether they decided to keep it like this, I don't know. But again, the movement is particularly poor for these mutants. Sometimes their bodies twitch, but it doesn't look like a natural twitching. Sometimes they kind of stutter. For this reason, I give the movement 3 out of 10. The AI of the mutants is pretty limited. They do chase after animals, which is interesting. They soon lose interest in characters as you fairly easily outrun them or they disappear completely. Their behaviour is predictable. There seems to be very little variation in how the mutants react. Now, these are creatures that potentially could have some kind of artificial intelligence. They may well be able to make judgment calls within the game context, but that's very limited. They very much act like zombies. Are they zombie-minded? I don't think so. It'd be interesting to see these mutants do something different. And for this reason, for the limited AI, I give the AI rating of 2 out of 10. Threat. Interestingly, despite the problems they have with their movement and appearance, the mutants in Miscreated do pose a significant threat. They do 10 damage. 10% of your damage is taken when they hit, which actually can be quite terrifying. If you get 2 or 3 mutants on you, you can die very quickly. And because in Miscreated you can get a number of bleeds, each one requiring a bandage, they can be a real threat. They can also spring out of nowhere, run from bushes, and they're pretty quick when they're up close and you're pointing a gun at another player. They can really turn the table. So for this reason, I give the threat rating of 7 out of 10. So considering everything that we talked about already, the immersion does suffer because of the movement and the appearance. The sound is also fairly jagged and unusual. It doesn't sound like it comes from the throat of something that was once human, if that's what they were. They also have these glitches, which make us realise it's a game. in the most intense moments. They can disappear, as I've said, which destroys the immersion. I admire the fact that the creators of Miscreated have attempted to add something different, create a different enemy, but they're very far from making these feel a real presence. The threat that they pose is more that the amount of damage they do can be detrimental to our character rather than a suspenseful element. It's something we have to avoid rather than fear. So for these reasons, I give the immersion score of 3 out of 10. So adding all the scores together, it gives the mutants in Miscreated a fear factor rating of 40%. Guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next monster review. Don't forget, I previously reviewed the zombies in Daisy Standalone, the video for which is linked on the screen. Disclaimer, these reviews are only of the concerned monster and not the game they feature in. The game itself will have many other elements that may well sway opinions. Some of the games that reviewed monsters appear in are in development, and so expect this to be taken into consideration, and later reviews may appear at later dates on full release. These games are featured due to popularity and reputation. All monsters are reviewed within the context of the gaming environment and narrative. Each review is based upon one type of monster or enemy in that game and does not include more than one type, although they may be mentioned. These monsters are all reviewed on high settings.